You're at the international desk with Jonathan Mann.
Thanks for joining us. A year after his inauguration, Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi is a polarizing figure, with some protesters calling for his ouster and others vowing to defend him. This is Cairo's Tahrir Square today, the center of the 2011 uprising. Crowds are chanting the same slogans now against their first leader. And here you see Mr. Morsi's supporters chanting slogans of their own. Opponents are demanding President Morsi's resignation in early elections. They say he's reneged on his promise to be a president for all Egyptians. He has failed, they say, to deliver on the revolution's hopes of freedom and social justice. In addition, many Egyptians are deeply frustrated by the current economic slump and blame the government for their poor standard of living. Since taking office a year ago, Mr. Morsi has squared off against Egypt's judiciary, its media, its police, even artists. Opponents also accuse the ruling Muslim Brotherhood of usurping the revolution to impose Islamic rule. Let's start with our Ben Wiedemann, who's watching the scene from above Tahrir Square. What's going on, Ben?
Well, Jonathan, I have not seen a crowd this large in Tahrir Square since the night of the 11th of February when Hosni Mubarak stepped down. There are hundreds of thousands of people jammed into Tahrir Square on the bridges going over the Nile, and there are more and more people coming. This is really hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Egyptians are voting with their feet here against President Mohamed Morsi. Earlier this evening, we were in another part of town where there's a pro-Morsi demonstration occurring, but in relative terms, it's a much smaller gathering. This is a gathering where you see there are many women, there are Christians, there are secular people, there are devout Muslims. It's a very good cross-section of Egyptian society. So certainly, if President Mohamed Morsi is watching these live pictures coming out of Tahrir Square, he may have reason to worry. John?
Ben Wiedemann live for us. You can hear the echo of that crowd moving through the air above Cairo, but Ian Lee is on the ground in Tahrir Square. Let's get his perspective. We have him on the line. Ian, if you can hear us, tell us about what's going on around you.
Oh, it's extremely packed down here. There's people still streaming in. As you can hear me, people are chanting, "We're not going to leave. We want President Morsi to leave." It is quite a festive atmosphere. There's a cross-section of Egyptian society here. You have men, women, children dancing around. You have people who are wearing the Islamic headscarf and people who aren't. It really is just a cross-section of Egyptian society and quite a festive atmosphere. People are waving flags, honking horns. Very joyous. There really is a celebratory atmosphere going on right now.
Ian Lee. Now let's bring in Reza Sayeh at the presidential palace, normally a symbol of the authority of the state, but today the scene of another big anti-Morsi demonstration. Reza?
Jonathan, President Morsi's critics, his opponents, wanted a big turnout, and by any measure, they have succeeded. There is a massive crowd out here in front of the presidential palace. Tens of thousands of people here. Thousands more are making their way, and this is shaping up to be the largest anti-government demonstration in front of the palace dating back to the 2011 revolution. This is an incredible scene, so I'm briefly going to step aside to give you a closer look at the sea of people below us. We were down there just a few minutes ago, and it's an electrifying atmosphere. People of all ages, women, children, all of them with this message to President Morsi that your time is up. We don't want you anymore. This is a culmination of a campaign that started a few months ago with a petition drive. The leaders of that petition drive say that they have gathered 22 million signatures. That petition called on President Morsi to leave, calling for new elections. Obviously, you have President Morsi defying their call. He says that he was democratically elected. His supporters are demonstrating for him a short drive away, and that's why we have this face-off. It's important to note, Jonathan, that this isn't the only place we're seeing this anti-Morsi demonstration, as you hear the crowd cheer. In other cities throughout Egypt, Alexandria, Asyut, Port Said, hundreds of thousands of people throughout Egypt. And as Ben Wiedemann just mentioned, you have to think that President Morsi is watching, and you wonder what he's thinking at this hour. Jonathan?
The roar of the crowd is deafening. It speaks volumes. And I want to ask you about something you said earlier, because it was astonishing. You said that there was no obvious police protection around the presidential palace. I'm wondering, both at a physical level, but also at a political level, how vulnerable is Mohamed Morsi today on the first anniversary of his inauguration?
We arrived here at the presidential palace about 10 hours ago. We've been watching to see if there's any police officers, any soldiers. We haven't seen any. There's indications that there's some private security firms watching some stores. Other than that, besides a lengthy concrete barrier in front of the presidential palace, there's nothing protecting the palace. If these protesters want to get at the palace, they seemingly have an opportunity to do so. But at this point, the mood seems to be festive. It's electrifying. There is no violence, but the drama is building because we don't know what the coming hours is going to bring. These people behind us see this as an opportunity to remove President Morsi. What will they resort to? Will they go beyond this? That's what we'll be watching in the coming hours, John.
Reza Sayeh at the presidential palace, Ben Wiedemann overlooking Tahrir Square, Ian Lee on the ground with the demonstrators.